A Pile of Cucumbers. Written by Johnny Fist. Sabrina had loved smoking weed from a very young age. Her brother had got her hooked on it when she was about 14. Now she was 22, which meant she had spent the last 8 years doing it constantly. You could even say she pursued the habit enthusiastically and with great willingness. Quite often, her use of the relaxing substance caused her a lot of problems. She was an anxious sort of person, and that was precisely why. When their mother occasionally left her brother in charge of looking after his sister, he never knew how to keep her occupied or calm her down during those turbulent, pubescent years. So he offered her the only thing he himself knew well. At first she refused vehemently, as most people do when offered something their mother might punish them for if she found out, especially a 14-year-old girl. But eventually her rebellious nature won out, and she tried it. From that point on, not only did she stop refusing, she eagerly began offering it to others herself. Let us return to Sabrina's character. She was a textbook choleric temperament with a persistent sense of anxiety that only intensified over the years. After all, the girl was growing up, and one set of problems merely replaced another. Her life was no exception. First, she was expelled from school, though with enormous difficulty she eventually managed to finish it. Then she was expelled from 2 universities. After that, however, the line was drawn. In a desperate attempt to save their daughter, her parents decided to send her far away to Germany. Their reasoning was simple. There she would know no one, speak none of the language, and perhaps hardship and loneliness would make her come to her senses and abandon the habit. When Sabrina learned about this exile, she became terribly anxious. Over the course of a week, she smoked through what would normally have been a month's supply, trying somehow to silence the voice inside her head that screamed relentlessly that she would never find weed there again, never be happy again, and that these were not even her real parents. She was adopted and all the rest of it. In a mildly intoxicated state, she poured all of this out to her parents. They had been prepared for something like this, and as a precaution, they locked her in the basement 3 days before departure. According to them, she had hit rock bottom, and it was time to prepare for a new life. Sabrina wanted absolutely none of it. While locked inside, she smashed everything in the basement in protest against what was happening. She managed all of that on the first day. On the second came withdrawal. By the third, she collapsed into tears. She sobbed, begged to be let out, and promised she would become the best daughter imaginable. As if God himself had heard her prayers, the basement door finally opened. Sabrina lifted her tear-streaked face towards the light, like someone touched by a divine beam. Her father stood in the doorway holding her bag. It quickly became clear that if her prayers had been heard at all, they had not been answered fully. Her father grabbed her by the arm and led her to the car. Knowing she might struggle or try to run away, he sensibly threw her suitcase onto the back seat and shoved Sabrina herself into the boot. That way she would definitely make it to the airport. And so she did. Once there, her father hauled his daughter out of the boot in full view of everyone and marched her to the correct terminal. He escorted her through security, brought her onto the plane, sat beside her, tied her to the seat, and taped her mouth shut. She had been causing such a scene that he saw no alternative. He told her it would only remain that way until takeoff. He told the stewardess the same thing. Sabrina resisted with all her strength. Then she looked out of the window one final time to see the homeland from which she was being torn away. She now hated her father more than anyone else in the world. No, actually she hated her brother even more, the same brother who had introduced her to all of this and then conveniently disappeared so as not to be involved. When the plane finally took off, the hatred faded. The despair faded too. She went limp and sank into the seat. Her father untied her hands and removed the tape from her mouth. Calmly, he tried to explain how this would be better for her, how they were acting in her best interests, and all the usual routine talk. None of it comforted her. She wanted nothing any more. Even life itself disgusted her. 2 hours into the flight, the plane was crossing the ocean. Sabrina glanced at the endless blue expanse below and asked her father if she could go to the toilet. What could possibly happen to her at that altitude? Her father let her go. Sabrina entered the lavatory and locked the door behind her. 10 minutes later, smoke began pouring out of the toilet. The stewardess tried to open the door, but it was firmly shut. When Sabrina finally ran out of air and could barely breathe, she opened the door and staggered out. She was gasping while inside the lavatory, everything that could burn was burning. Over the intercom, the captain announced that they would have to turn back. With that amount of smoke, they would not last much longer, even though the stewardesses were desperately trying to extinguish the fire with extinguishers. 2 hours later, they were home again. Sabrina and her father sat together in a special interrogation room. Severe punishment awaited both of them, along with a ban from flying altogether. Sabrina was overjoyed. She did not care in the slightest if she were punished, imprisoned, or anything else. At least now she would never leave this country again. When they were finally released from the airport many hours later, her father told Sabrina she was free to do whatever she pleased. Neither he nor her mother would ever again try to set her on the right path. And she would have to move out of their house. Sabrina was ready for anything, but only after one more joint first.